And finally, new rule of all the ways America continues to divide itself. Nowhere is it more pronounced than in gender. And until the Democrats come to grips with that, they won't have much success winning elections. Let's just put it out there. Women are the Democrats' base, and men who get hit in the head for a living are Trump's.
There's a moment in politics when a party stops losing ground and starts losing itself. Not in a single headline, not from one bad debate. It happens slowly, then all at once. What you're about to watch didn't air as breaking news. It wasn't a congressional hearing, it wasn't a leaked memo, it was a late-night comedy show. And somehow, that's where the most uncomfortable truth about the Democratic Party got said out loud. Bill Maher didn't just roast a party, he dissected one. And the man sitting next to him, a former White House chief of staff, a former mayor of Chicago, didn't argue. He nodded. When the insiders stop defending and start agreeing, that's not a debate anymore. That's a confession. And what gets confessed in the next few minutes has been building for years.
Finally, new rule, it's never too early to strategize. Democrats have been having a lot of donor retreats lately where liberal strategists hold idea-thons, where they try to figure out why they keep losing elections. You know, apart from using words like idea-thon. And now one idea that's getting a lot of attention is the Dems need to find their Joe Rogan, a liberal Joe Rogan, because that's why Kamala lost. Republicans have a podcast. Okay, maybe. Or you could consider this. Instead of conjuring up a new Joe Rogan, ask yourself why you lost.
So what's the big idea coming out of these donor retreats? Find the next Joe Rogan. Build a liberal version. Get a microphone, build an audience, and let the culture wars play out on the airwaves. On the surface, it sounds almost reasonable. Almost. But here's the thing nobody in those retreat rooms wanted to say out loud. You don't lose an audience by not having a platform. You lose them by giving them a reason to leave. And the real story of how Democrats lost Joe Rogan isn't about media strategy. It's about something much harder to fix than a podcast budget.
The Democratic Party's current approval rating is 21%, which is only slightly more popular than Kanye's swastika shirts. Maybe that's why, according to a new Gallup poll, 45% of Democrats want the party to move to the center, which is up 11 points from 4 years.
21%. Let that land for a second. That's not a party in decline. That's a brand in free fall. And here's what makes it stranger. The people calling for a course correction aren't the opposition. They're not Fox News contributors. They're not Republican strategists. They're Democrats. Nearly half of the party's own voters quietly raising their hands and saying, "This isn't working, and we all know it." That kind of internal pressure doesn't show up on a bumper sticker. It shows up in turnout numbers, in empty precincts, in the gap between what the base believes and what the party keeps saying on television.
This is
I was being fair.
No, this is a huge Democratic Party problem. If you look at Democratic cities, they are terribly run. They have incredibly high taxes. It is impossible to build, so the cost of housing. Let me finish. I give you a chance. Cost of housing is crazy in places like New York and Chicago. If you look at Democratic states, look at New York versus Florida. Okay, roughly the same population. The budget of New York State is twice that of Florida. What do they have? Streets paved with gold? I live in New York. I pay the highest taxes in New York. You get nothing for it. And I think that is the image people have of the Democratic Party. Lots of taxes, lots of regulation, but nothing gets done.
Hey,
and I think
I live in LA.
Right. And I think, you know, the Democrats have to own this and realize the answer to everything is not more taxes, more.
This is the part that cuts deep. Because Rahm Emanuel isn't a critic from the outside. He governed, he made the calls, he signed the budgets, and here he is, on camera, not defending the record, validating the critique. The cities. That's where Democratic governance is most visible, most tested, and right now, most exposed. When you run on the idea that your side knows how to run things, the places you actually run become evidence. And voters aren't consulting white papers. They're looking at their rent, their commute, their property taxes, their neighborhood at 11 p.m. When the promise and the lived experience stop matching, no amount of messaging closes that gap.
Said, I have 2 little girls. I don't want them getting run over on a playing field by a formerly male athlete. But as a Democrat, I'm supposed to be afraid to say that. Yes, there's the problem in a nutshell. Because Congressman Moulton sounds reasonable to me, but his campaign manager immediately resigned in protest. Let me make this as plain as I can to the smart.
What Congressman Moulton said wasn't controversial in a kitchen, a barbershop, or a PTA meeting. It was controversial inside a party infrastructure that treats the center like a betrayal. And what happened next tells you everything. His campaign manager walked out. Not because the voters disagreed, because the apparatus did. That's the fracture, not left versus right, but the party machine versus the actual humans it's supposed to represent, and the perverse logic underneath it. The louder you are, the safer you are. The more reasonable you sound, the more dangerous you become. In what functioning political movement does sounding normal become a liability?
By saying the reason I'm so mad at the Democrats is because as a voter, the issues that were important to me were democracy and the environment. And now, there's no one to champion or defend either of them because you, with your aggressively anti-common sense agenda and shitty...
Here's the part that doesn't get discussed enough. Democrats don't just lose elections. They lose them while being convinced they're winning the argument. Every post-election cycle, the party that holds the values and the moral authority somehow can't hold the room. And instead of asking why, the conversation turns to tactics, messaging, framing, as if the problem is the packaging, not what's inside. Maher's frustration isn't ideological, it's almost parental. He watched a party that used to speak for working people slowly develop a language that working people don't recognize, and then wonder why working people stopped listening.
For months, Democrats have been saying, how is this even close? And they're right, it wasn't. They could not conceive of a second Trump term, but they should have. When does America ever turn down second? I mean, come on.
Watch what happens when a Democrat actually says something a normal voter would say. Not something radical, not some policy deep cut. Just a statement that sounds like it came from a real human being who lives in the real world. The reaction is instantaneous, and it doesn't come from Republicans. It comes from inside the building. The call is coming from inside the House, and the result, every single time, is the same. The reasonable voice gets quieter, and the ideological enforcement gets louder. Meanwhile, the people who lost the races, who misread the rooms, who called it wrong publicly, they keep their seats at the table. Accountability runs in only one direction inside that party, and it's not toward leadership.
A book questioning the sudden uptick in transitioning children was released. A trans lawyer with the ACLU named Chase Strangio tweeted, stopping the circulation of this book and these ideas is 100% a hill I will die on. How very civil liberties of him. Chase, by the way, has just been named one of the grand marshals of this year's New York City Pride March, along with 3 other trans people and a lesbian. Huh, what's missing here? Oh, right, a gay man. That's where we are now. Gay men aren't hip enough for the gay pride parade.
This is the part where things stop being about politics and start being about something larger. Maher's been doing this long enough to know when a cultural moment has gone past a tipping point. And what he's describing now isn't a policy disagreement. It's a values ecosystem where the rules change faster than anyone can track them. Where the definition of acceptable thought has a shorter shelf life than a gallon of milk. Where yesterday's ally can become today's problem without a single fact changing. Just the temperature in the room. That's not a coalition. That's a pressure cooker with the gauge removed. And eventually, something gives.
It's okay to ask questions about something that's very new and involves children. The answer can't always be that anyone from a marginalized community is automatically right, trump card, mic drop, end of discussion. Because we're literally experimenting on children. Maybe that's why Sweden and Finland have stopped giving puberty blockers to kids. Because we just don't know much about the long-term effects. Although common sense should tell you that when you reverse the course of raging hormones, there's going to be problems. We do know it hinders the development of bone density, which is kind of important if you like having a skeleton. Fertility and the ability to have an orgasm seem also to be affected. This isn't just a lifestyle decision.
Two countries, Sweden and Finland, places that spent years at the progressive frontier on gender medicine, have now pulled back. Not because of conservative backlash, because of data, because of outcomes. Because when you follow the evidence past the politics, the picture gets complicated. And that's exactly what makes this moment so electric in that studio. Maher isn't attacking anyone's identity. He's doing the one thing that's become almost taboo in certain circles, asking whether the institutions move too fast, too uniformly, with too little scrutiny. And when every major institution moves in the same direction at the same speed, that's not consensus. That's a signal worth examining.
And this is a phenomenon we need to take into account when we look at this issue. Yes, part of the rise in LGBT numbers is from people feeling free enough to tell it to a pollster, and that's all to the good. But some of it is, it's trendy. Penis equals man? Okay, boomer. Remember, the prime directive of every teen is anything to shock and challenge the squares who brought you up. It's why nobody gets a nose ring at 56. And if you haven't noticed that with kids doing something for the
There's a psychology to how movements get captured by their loudest members. It doesn't happen through votes or debates. It happens through silence, through the slow accumulation of moments where the moderate voice in the room decides it's not worth the fight. Democrats didn't get hijacked overnight. They got worn down, one resignation at a time, one viral pile-on at a time, one carefully worded non-answer at a time, until the center of gravity inside the party no longer matched the center of gravity inside the country. And by the time the polls showed it, it had been true for...
Someone must explain to Democrats what binary means. In America, we've got dozens of flavors of pretty much everything. Doritos and Gatorade, Oreos, Pepsi, Triscuits, Pop-Tarts, but we only have two political parties. Most democracies have a parliamentary system with many parties. We don't. We don't. With us, it's always plain or peanut. Cream or suppository, that's what...
Two parties. That's the whole board. No third option waiting in the wings, no parliamentary escape hatch. In a binary system, you don't need to be beloved. You just need to be more acceptable than the other choice. That's the lowest bar in democratic politics. And here's what makes Democrats' situation so remarkable. They keep clearing it wrong. Not because the country loves the opposition, not because voters have fundamentally shifted on the issues, but because the party keeps making the alternative feel like the safer bet. That's not a messaging failure. That's a structural one. And structural problems don't fix themselves with a new spokesperson.
Says we should let the Boston Marathon bomber vote. Why? Is there a great clamoring to give deranged serial killers more of a voice in civil society? Is Hannibal Lecter thinking, I love Trump for his narcissistic personality disorder, but Sanders really gets voters like me? Now, I'm sure you can make an argument for this, but we're trying to win an election here, and this just feeds into what Trump is saying.
69%. Negative views of Trump. That's not a narrow opening. That's a canyon. And what do you do with a canyon? Apparently, you find creative ways to trip over the edge anyway. Because the final irony in everything Maher laid out tonight is this. Democrats aren't losing because the country is against them. They're losing because they can't get out of their own way long enough to accept the country's help. The voters have been trying to hand them elections, and the party keeps correcting the voters' grammar while the votes walk out the door. That's the takedown. That's the autopsy. Not that the patient died, but that the surgeons were too busy arguing about the proper terminology to notice the bleeding. So ask yourself, when a party this convinced of its own righteousness keeps losing to an opponent this flawed, what exactly does that tell you about the party?